What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to DSM Media's pregame show for the Sixers and Hawks Game 6. It's win or go home for our Philadelphia 76ers. And I'm hoping it's the first part there. I'm hoping it's a win. But I am sitting here. You guys know me. I'm Scotty. You guys can find me on Twitter at Scotty Drown. You know my partner there, Dylan, at DylanJD98. Of course, we got some special guests with us here on DSM Media today. My guy, Phil Stifle, at Beard of Knowledge on Twitter. And then, of course, my man, Vance, at crew_love0. Welcome to the show, guys. Thanks for joining me, Dylan, DSM Media here today. Just really want to kick the wheels, see what you guys are thinking after that abysmal loss in Game 5. There was let's not forget it was a 2-game stretch of abysmal losses there, blown double-digit leads. Welcome to the show, guys. I'll start with you, Dylan. How you feeling today, man? Just going into the game, are you nervous? Any anxiety? How you feeling?
Is numb the appropriate word to use? Like is like want to be excited but not confident in what's going to transpire in an hour from now. Dude, I don't know. I've honestly, being a Philadelphia sports fan for 23 years now, you see a lot of shit happen in this city and a lot of ups and a lot of more downs. I don't remember ever feeling so depressed and like my heart was just ripped out of my chest like it was on Wednesday night. And not because of like the Kawhi shot comes to mind, but that's something that another player did in a close game. This was just the Sixers with a full on like choke for the century type job here. And I don't know how I'm going to bounce back from that. So like Vance was saying earlier, players, it's on to the next game. Whereas fans, we're going to be living through that moment until we win tonight, hopefully. But if I feel this way, I have no idea how they feel. And to be honest with you guys, I don't know if you've been on Twitter in the last 20 minutes or so, but if you've been seeing Doc's comments about if the guys are ready or not, and, he kind of said, like, we'll see or whatever. I'm very confused. He doesn't seem very upbeat or optimistic at all. I have no idea what's going on. So I'm numb, Scott.
And I'll go ahead and shoot it to you, Vance. How are you feeling, man? I know we talked a little bit earlier, but if you just want to kind of let our viewers know, where you're at with this and kind of how you were feeling after that abysmal loss.
Right. So unlike the Kawhi shot, the Sixers live to fight another day, right? So we have Game 6 tonight. The players turn the page quicker than the fans do. These guys are playing for legacy right now. If you're Doc Rivers, do you want to blow your 11th series where you've had a lead? If you're Ben Simmons, you could potentially be playing your last game in Philadelphia tonight. So, the question really comes down to is how bad do they want it? I think the Sixers are more likely to beat the Hawks 2 games in a row than the Hawks beating the Sixers 3 games in a row. But first things first, they have to take care of business tonight, fellas. They have to go out there. They have to dominate from start to finish. There is no taking your foot off the gas tonight. If you're Doc Rivers, if I'm Doc Rivers, I'm playing Ben, Tobias, and Joel 40-plus minutes. I'm changing it up, and I'm throwing Tyrese Maxey out there to throw a curveball at the Hawks, something that they really haven't seen. They have to do something different tonight because what they've been doing the last 2 games, it hasn't worked. And like I said, man, there's legacies on the line tonight. I think they win because they absolutely have to win. And they come back home and they give us, hopefully another W on Father's Day. But tonight, I think they win, fellas.
And what about you, Phil? How are you feeling, man?
Both Phil and Vance, basically stole exactly what I would have said. Numb is exactly numb and legacy. They're the 2 words I keep going back to. But I will go to my grave saying, I don't care if they lose tonight, they lose Game 7, or if they win both games. It doesn't matter. I will go to my grave saying this team, the Sixers team, is a much more talented team than this Atlanta Hawks team. There's no reason for us to be in this spot at all. And that's what I keep coming back to. But on the flip side of the equation, the numb part of it that Dylan says is, does it matter if they win this series? Because now what we've seen in these last 2 games, I used to think that the Sixers stood a really strong chance against the Brooklyn Nets. I thought matchup-wise we were great. But then the Hawks now have put a blueprint together to show how you could beat this team. So now, even if we get past, if this team, the Hawks team that is not anywhere near as talented as the Sixers, do we really even stand a chance? I mean, so does it matter at this point?
Yeah.
And that's that numb part of it.
Yeah, no, and I get the numb part of it, honestly, I do, because it even goes into watching the game, right? If the Sixers build an early 10-point lead in the first quarter, it means nothing to me now. It means zero to me. If they have a lead at half, that means nothing. If they have a lead at the end of the third, it means nothing because we've seen them fall apart.
I just said to Vance before the show, if they're up 15 going into the fourth, I don't know how to feel. I'm not going to feel confident like I normally would.
I'm going to say something. If they're up 15 going into the fourth quarter, this might be controversial, but you seriously have to consider sitting Ben.
Yeah,
you have to.
I think you have to,
because at this point, if this is a one-game series now for the Sixers, right? You have to win tonight in order for you to stave off elimination and get to Sunday. You can't have Ben on the court missing free throws in the fourth quarter. That has become Nate McMillan. I don't know if you guys paid attention, but people were saying in game 2 that they thought Nate McMillan was stupid for putting Ben on the line. That's when the mental warfare started between Nate McMillan and Ben, because he knew the longer this series goes on and the more Ben misses, the less aggressive he's going to be because he doesn't want to go to the free throw line.
Yep.
If you're in a position now, if you're in the fourth quarter and you have a 15-point lead and Nate McMillan's trying to walk you down again by fouling Ben, at this point, you absolutely have to consider not putting him on the court because he is a liability at this point.
And so, Vance, I noticed something that you said earlier, and I kind of wanted to pick your brain on this. So we just saw, like, you know, and I've seen a lot of our fans say, like, oh, we need the bench in the game. You know, they have to play some minutes. The rotation has to be a little long. We got to keep our starters fresh. Have you seen how tired Joel Embiid is? How do you feel when you watch a guy like Kevin Durant go out there and play 48 minutes off of a torn Achilles, and he's at the age of, 33, and he played an entire game?
Right.
Then we watch these guys like Tobias, and I get Joel Embiid is not playing an entire game. He's a ridiculous sized human being. But Ben Simmons, he's an athletic freak, even at 6'10". He's a very fit dude. Tobias Harris, once again, another guy that should be in great shape at his age. He's 28 years old. Ben's 24. Why can't these guys play 40+ minutes?
So here's my theory on this. I don't think the problem is the players when it comes to playing the minutes. I think it's Doc. Doc has made a mistake in this series by trying to match Atlanta sub for sub. You cannot do that with that Hawks team. Your advantage is your size and your starting lineup. The Hawks' advantage is that they're a little bit deeper than you. They can come off the bench with 3 other guys that can score and kind of cut into your lead and hold the fort until their starters come back in and take over the game. You know, going sub for sub was never the Sixers' strength. And I think Doc has done the team a disservice by not playing those guys more minutes. And I'll bring it back to Tyrese Maxey again. Like, Tyrese Maxey defended Russell Westbrook in game 4 of the last series and helped you close out the Wizards in game 5. So how do you get to this series? And if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Doc say something before about Tyrese Maxey maybe being like one of their worst defenders at the beginning of the season?
He said that's why he wasn't playing earlier in the year.
Right. But by the end of the season, he had become an integral part of your rotation. He's one of your best 8 players. How does he close out the series against Washington and you get to the second round and he plays 6 minutes in the first game? Doesn't come off the bench for like 3 games in a row.
So to your point, Vance, like I'm still a huge Doc fan. Like, I'm not just until we're actually eliminated and his, his faults come out to play and we get eliminated, I'll still be a Doc fan, right? But to your point, like, he's too much of a, I don't know, like sticking to who's in a rhythm, if that makes, like, Shake Milton was out of the rotation. He was dead. He was out of the rotation. And me and Phil and Scotty came on here after the Shake Milton game earlier in the series in game 2. And now Shake, he had a nice little spurt in game 3, but he hasn't been good since. He's playing, and now Maxey's completely out of the rotation. So Doc doesn't, I don't know, he doesn't rotate them well enough. I don't know if he's figured it out, but just here's the quote, guys, that I brought up earlier. Doc Rivers on Game 6 tonight. Win the game, be aggressive, play. I think our guys are ready, but you never know. What does that mean?
So here's my problem with Doc. I've had an issue with Doc ever since this thing started to really fall apart to me after Game 4. When Doc came out after the game and he made a really strange comment, he said the guys were playing effing hero ball. And I'm watching the game and I'm thinking, nah, Doc, they didn't play. I didn't see anybody out there jacking up shots playing hero ball. What I saw was a coach that couldn't coach in the moment, that slowly got walked down by Nate McMillan. It had very little to do with guys playing hero ball. It had everything to do with Doc not making the right decisions and the right substitutions. And that's how they lost that game. So, you know, for me to hear Doc come out and say that after a Game 4, that was alarming to me.
Yeah. So you keep bringing up Nate and Doc and all this stuff. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know the exact number, but Doc Rivers at least has one title as a coach.
Yeah.
Right.
Nate McMillan, I brought it up. I shared it out on Twitter this week again, that I brought up in the offseason that Nate McMillan was available. Does anybody have any interest? I know Nate McMillan only had one series in his career as a coach. Doc Rivers at least has a championship as a coach. He is being out-coached by Nate McMillan. And I think it really comes down to discipline because of the quotes that you're saying, Vance, of what Doc's saying after these tough losses. He's not the disciplined coach, the hold the players accountable coach that this team needed. And,
Right.
and I think it's pretty bad when a lesser coach is out coaching a borderline Hall of Fame coach in Doc Rivers.
Can I ask you guys this? This was the word in the offseason was accountability, right? And we wanted a coach that would hold Ben accountable, Joel accountable. And when Doc got here and you saw changes in their games and Joel's conditioning and all that, we started saying, and the way he kind of, gets on their asses, whether that comment was wrong about hero ball, but he was at least, maybe you could say holding them accountable for the claps or whatever.
At least criticizing them publicly. Yeah.
But does he hold himself accountable? Because he won't adjust to what's not going, what's going wrong right now.
Yes. Yeah.
That's huge, Dylan.
Dylan, you're 100% right. And that's what I tweeted on Twitter earlier today. Like, you can say that guys are playing hero ball, but it really starts with you, Doc. I mean, this could be the 11th time in your career that you've lost the series after you've had a lead. This will be the second consecutive year where you've given up. Last year, consecutively a 21-point lead, a 19-point lead. This year, you've given up an 18-point lead, a 26-point lead. At what point, Doc, do you look in the mirror and say that it starts with me?
Yeah. Has there been, like, I got to go back and look at it and all. Has there been as much of a disparity? And again, I'll say it. The Sixers team is way more talented than the Hawks team. All the other time, this might be Doc's worst blown series if he does not. So it's really saying something about Doc as a coach right now.
And it's not even what he's done in the past with rotations and the bench unit and all that and what's not going right. It's not that he won't adjust to it. It's also the fact that he's going away from what's worked in the first half of these last two games. Like this stat after Game 1, Philly went from 10 Embiid post-ups in the first half to 3 in the second half, just 1 in the fourth with 2 minutes left and got the ball with 5 seconds left on the shot clock. So much of their offense is built on Joel and the post-ups. And obviously it worked in the first half because he was taking Clint Capella's lunch money yet again after Clint Capella's awful comment after Game 4. And then he goes away from it.
And yeah, that's what I was going to say earlier, because, I thought this comment here was, kind of how we feel about every time we watch the Sixers do something stupid on offense or watch, a series of events transpire that just looks totally unorganized for the Sixers offense. And we can never decipher, is it the players or is it Doc? But at the end of the day, Doc, you have to sit and be down. If you were giving them the freedom and Embiid is now in the second half tired, taking 3-point shot after 3-point shot, sitting outside of the paint, it's the same thing we said about Brett Brown. Get his ass in the paint. You sit him down. You tell him you do not leave the post. If you're tired, we'll get you out and we'll get you back in. Do not leave the post. We don't need you.
And by the way,
one of your guys commented on that before, probably 10 comments ago, one of the guys on YouTube there, that you're using Joel Embiid so much in the first half. He is playing on a torn meniscus. And you're wearing him out before the crunch moments of a game. You need Ben Tobias more Seth Curry in the first half.
I did want to touch on Gid's comment. Pull that back up, Scott, real quick. The Doc needs to put Ben. Yeah, that one. So he's correct. Don't get me wrong. However, let me ask you guys, let me just frame a different question to you. Tobias Harris, Ben's supposed to be the second superstar, the second guy to Joel, right? But we've seen time and time again this year, offensively, it's been Tobias Harris, and he has disappeared after like the first quarter of game 5, right? So let me ask you guys, he's talking about putting Ben in a position to get into a rhythm. And Scott, you just talked about Joel Embiid, or Phil, I forget which one of you just made the comment about Joel Embiid with the torn meniscus. And he, last game, he had 16 points in the first quarter, took like 8 or 9 shots. And then you saw him struggle 1 of 5, I think, in the fourth quarter. You can tell he's tired, he's winded, maybe the knee's bothering him, whatever. Is Toby the guy to get into a rhythm offensively? Let Joel ease himself into the game, just like every other superstar does in the league. LeBron, every other superstar eases themselves into the game, gets everyone else involved. Do you put Toby, the guy you need offensively, more so than Ben, to get him into a position early, and then Joel's touches and shots will come later?
And see, that is something else that I wanted to say about Doc is, I can't remember if it was game 1 or game 2 of this series, but Tobias got off to a really hot start, and he takes him out for like that normal substitution he does with Toby at like the 8 or 6 minute mark of the first quarter.
6 minute mark.
And you take him out of the game, he's in a rhythm. Let get what you can out of him right now. We can go to Joel Embiid down the stretch, like you said, Dylan. If we're not using him, exhausting him in the first half. And obviously we love to see Joel Embiid dominating Clint Capella in the beginning of that game. But when you don't get these guys in rhythm, and you know that Joel Embiid is injured, he is going to fatigue easier. You got to take these things into account. And it just seems like Doc hasn't done that, guys.
Brett Brown used to do that all the time with Joel Embiid. At the 6 minute mark of the first quarter, he was no matter what rhythm. And I used to crucify Brett Brown for doing that with Joel. But we need to crucify Doc Rivers.
We have to hold Doc accountable. And we've been holding him on this pedestal all season. He obviously got us to a place that we have not seen with this, with this core of a team that we have with the Sixers. But we have to hold him accountable still now that we are to a new place, and he's starting to crumble, man.
Yeah,
what were we going to say?
My opinion about Doc, what I've seen, and this kind of started for me back in Game 4 against the Wizards. I had a lot of questions about some of Doc's rotations and what he didn't do. For a guy that's been coaching as long as he has, he seems to not manage with feel. Like, you got to be in the moment when it comes to these games. You can't have everything, predetermined. If a guy's rolling, you let him roll. How do you go back to that same bench lineup with Toby on the court? I call him Toby in the blue coats. How do you go back to them after they, blew a lead basically in Game 4? Like, Doc, you're being paid a lot of money to pay attention to the details. You've got probably the best coaching staff that money can buy in the NBA, right? You've got NBA veterans and NBA coaches up and down your bench. How do you allow some of these things to happen? Like, are you not listening to the guys that are sitting on your bench? Because I know that Dave Yeager would tell you, hey, Doc, listen, we put this lineup in last game. You remember how that worked out? Maybe we shouldn't do that again. I don't understand how a guy has been coaching as long as he has, doesn't manage the game with more of a feel for what's going on in the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if there's any more Doc comments. I'm sorry for skipping over this, but guys, we did just spend the first 20 minutes crucifying Doc, and it's well deserved. Do not get me wrong.
But I think it's time
here. I think it's time to turn. No, I'm staying on the negative boat, but I think it's time to turn the attention to the guys who are actually on the court, because yes, Doc is a huge part of the blame right now. But when you go back to last game, Joel's numbers were down in the second half shooting wise, but what are you really going to say about Joel Embiid right now? Seth Curry was freaking phenomenal. He got cooked defensively by Lou Williams for about 8 straight possessions, but that's another Doc Rivers miscue right there.
Right.
But it comes Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, 4 points on 2 of 11 shooting. Ben Simmons has taken 1 shot in the last 4 fourth quarters. I can't defend it anymore. I will not. I cannot defend it anymore. I know what he does defensively. I know what he brings, pace-wise, but he hasn't even been doing that, guys, because Vance, you brought it up earlier, how, maybe he's, that mind game with Nate McMillan, maybe he's shying away from the ball because he doesn't want to get put to the line. Well, guess what? Then that takes away Ben controlling the pace and running your offense and creating this tempo. So I can't defend it anymore. He's number one on my list right now. Tobias Harris has been MIA since the second quarter of Game 4. That's why I just wanted to switch gears here and get more to the players.
Yeah, of course. And you did throw in one thing there with Lou Will, and it was actually infuriating to watch Seth Curry just get cooked that many times in a row. What are we waiting for? As far as him hitting shots, he was hitting them from everywhere. What are you waiting for? I didn't get that, but
pull up Ginsley's
I will take credit for Lou Williams going off. It's my fault because my brother texted me and said, "Watch out, Lou Williams is going to go off in this game." And my brother doesn't do the podcast or watching any of that stuff, and I'm like, dude, Lou Williams is cooked. He's done. He ain't gonna do anything. I got the text. I can pull it up and show you guys. I said, don't worry about Lou Williams taking over a game. And then Lou Williams just goes off.
Plus 31.
100% my fault.
Plus 31.
My fault. My bad. I take credit for that.
That's outrageous.
Hey, Scotty.
Yeah.
Do you remember a few months ago when I sent you guys a message in our chat and I asked you how you felt about Ben in the playoffs because I had concerns about Ben? Yeah. I hate to bring this back to Doc, but I have to for a second because when those trade rumors came out about Ben and Harden, that was Doc's opportunity to keep Ben on the hot seat. That was his opportunity to keep him on the hot seat. And instead, what happened was he backed him publicly, and Ben's out there doing what he's always done. Listen, Ben Simmons is not going to change. He's not, at least in Philadelphia. Like, I think that guy completely needs a wake-up call. He's not going to change. He's never going to do what needs to be done, really, in order for them. I'd be shocked. As much as I want them to win, I'd be shocked if he came out tonight and actually took over the game and dropped 20. Yeah. Just because I feel like this is a guy that seems like to me he's been coddled his whole life and has been told that he's the best. And this guy, to me, he's a guy that thinks that he doesn't have to work. That's just my opinion.
But, dude, again, I get what you're saying. But at the same time, if it was anyone else but Ben, your favorite player, and I love Ben, you wouldn't be saying that. Like at one time or another, he's the point guard of this team. If the ball's in your hands, I get it. Ben's not going to create his own shot. I get all that. But you're telling me Ben Simmons can't. We've seen him post up. John Collins is the best body they can probably throw at him. Kevin Huerter, Bogey, Trae Young. He had Trae Young in the post and didn't take advantage of it last game. Yeah, I get what you're saying. He hasn't, like Doc hasn't, Doc's kind of shied away from using Ben in the dunker spot like he has in all year in this series. But at the same time, he could take more than one shot in 4 quarters, dude, even without it being drawn up for him.
Listen, guys, we know a star player when we see one. No matter what people tell us, you watch the NBA play.
Right. If he's that guy, he shouldn't need Doc to draw up a play to get a shot off.
And the truth of the matter is, guys, if Ben was that guy, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
4 years in, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Look, dude, I hope he comes out with a fire lit under his ass and he locks up Trae Young. And I'm not asking for 20 points. I'm not asking for 30 points, whatever. I'm not kidding myself that Ben's that guy. 15 points, aggressive Ben. Like, all you need, aggressive. How many times do I have to see the tweet or say the tweet? Aggressive Ben is the best Ben. Mm-hmm. You haven't seen that the last 2 games.
My other thing with Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris, and I mean, you guys all know. Anybody that's watching this show knows how like each one of us feels. Like we've talked about this team so much.
Time out. I don't know. I can't even turn around for this. Ben Simmons is on the back of this damn T-shirt.
We've talked about this team so much, and you look at these 2 players in Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris, specifically in the second half of that Game 5. Ben at the free throw line, and this has been kind of Ben throughout the playoffs. He looks so scared. And Tobias Harris in the fourth quarter, Doc said something to him, and it was Tobias couldn't even register what he was saying.
He was arguing with him.
Yeah, like
I put that out. We did a post-game show, and I put that. I'm like, when you have a legend, I don't want to say legendary coach, but a great, well-respected coach in Doc Rivers, you listen to what he has to say.
Yeah,
they blew that off.
And he was
no questions
playing
asked.
potato there in that last possession. Well, it wasn't the last possession. It was like their last real chance of getting the lead back in the game. Playing hot potato with Embiid. Embiid's like, take the fucking ball.
Tobias Harris. There were 3 possessions. There were 3 possessions that I can distinctly remember from the end of Game 5 with Tobias Harris. They came out of a timeout. I don't remember if it was the timeout he was arguing with Doc or not, but he came out of a timeout and he threw a bad pass to a cutting Joel Embiid for a turnover, bucket going the other way. Then there were 2 more possessions offensively, the next 2 minutes or so, where Tobias Harris was backing down, doing whatever offensively. The offense is stagnant. No one's moving. There's no off-ball movement. And he gets a shot off with like a second and a half, and it hits the front rim 2 different times. That's 3 possessions, probably in the last 4 minutes or so of this game, where Tobias Harris was a detriment to this team.
Yeah. And don't they see what works? Like when you're driving to the rim, that is what works. It's like they get in this second half like mentality that they can, like, we got a lead now, we can take jump shots.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we can settle for jump shots. And I think that, that whole stretch by Seth Curry, now that I'm really thinking about it, it was like it was fool's gold for them. They're like, maybe we can just ride Seth for the rest of the game and I won't have to make a shot.
Did you guys see that stat? First of all, I don't even think no one else made a shot outside of Joel and Seth last game in the second half, right?
Yeah,
but there was a point in the game where the last 42 points scored by the Sixers, 36 of them were between Seth Curry and Joel Embiid. That just can't happen. Now, whether, again, it does come back to coaching and game plan and offensive sets and whatever Doc's screwing up right now, but it also comes down to Tobias Harris just creating his own damn shot and putting one through the net. Like, that's what it comes down to, that he's been MIA. And that's the point. And guys, I'm not going to lie. We talked about him a lot after game 2 in a win. They missed Danny Green, and I'm not blaming.
Just bringing up Danny Green's.
I am not saying.
I am
not saying the Sixers lost this game or blew those leads because Danny Green was out by any stretch of the imagination, but they do miss Danny Green.
They do.
It's because of the rotation, and I said this as soon as Danny Green went down. Korkmaz, I actually think Furkan, considering he's being put in a role that he shouldn't be in, is handling himself serviceably.
He was like a plus 20 last game.
But the thing is, you lose Danny Green, now you lose your third best defender on the team. Now Tobias has to get bumped up to being a better,
switched on Trey.
Exactly. Instead, because you can't put Furkan there, you're getting the snowball effect of losing Danny Green. And there's all the talk about shrinking the bench for this game. Well, Furkan is a guy that would have been shrunk off the bench in this situation.
Right.
But he has to now start and play important minutes because Danny Green is gone. And everybody thought I didn't want to trade Danny Green mid-season. I understand the value of Danny Green. And that is really, you look at it, when did he go out? In game 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden we've lost multiple games
since
we've lost multiple games since we lost Danny Green.
So
three.
My clearest, moment where I realized, like, God damn, we missed Danny Green was during that Lou Williams stretch, because he could guard Lou Williams. I know he couldn't guard Trae Young, but he can guard an older Lou Williams. He's a lengthier guard than, say, like a Seth Curry, who's just simply is not laterally. He's not mobile laterally as quickly as he should be. He's in the league because he can shoot. Let's be honest. He can score the basketball. And he made up for it. Like, you don't want Seth Curry guarding one of the best scorers of all time in Lou Williams. But that was like the clearest moment when I realized we missed Danny Green so much. But I'm wondering if you guys want to turn the page here.
I just have one more thing to say before we get into tonight's game. Because again, I misread his comment at first. What he said was this guy has not left the dunker spot this series. I misread that. My only counter there is, if you're going to say Joel not in a post up is just as much on him than it is Doc, then Ben being stuck in the dunker spot is just as much on Ben than it is as Doc having him play there. You can't treat Ben and Joel like they're on different levels if we want Ben to be the superstar. That's just where I'm at now. It's sad because we shouldn't, and it's only because we're losing the series right now that I'm this ticked off. Like I said, when we're winning, these issues that people freak out about weren't pissing me off when the Sixers were winning by 20 points, because they shouldn't have been pissing people off. But now that it's biting them in the ass, kind of, I have to talk about it. I don't want to.
think about that post-game show after game 2 when there was like 5 or 6 of us on here.
Yeah.
Got into this huge, back and forth on, Danny Green scoring 4 points and Ben Simmons scoring 4 points in that game, but winning by 16. And we all just came to the conclusion that, let it slide.
We got to
win. And it's like, the next couple games, of course, I believe we did win the game after that and then lost 2 in a row. But, you look at after that moment, it's came back to bite us. And now I'm looking back at that moment. I'm like, man, maybe I shouldn't have been cool with Ben only taking, 3 shots in that game, only scoring 4 points, looking in retrospect. But I do want to kind of turn the page here. Do want to shift the focus to the actual game tonight. The series isn't over. We are venting right now. This is the first time I've gotten to talk about the game 5. And
these things get out of hand, man.
4, really. But Phil, I'll start with you down there in the corner. What are your keys to the Sixers winning the game tonight? Just simply, what do they have to do tonight? Obviously, we know Ben, we know Tobias. What are the keys that you
basically
have?
The opposite of everything we just bitched about for the last 30 minutes is what they need to do. Now, obviously, Ben and Tobias have to be, overly aggressive. But I like to go back to that point we made earlier in the show, conserving Joel for the crux of the game. I think that's important. And the way you do that is you got Furkan, you got Tobias, you got, Matisse. I've been overly excited with the confidence, not necessarily the percentage of making the shots, but at least the confidence that Matisse all of a sudden seems to have with his game in this series. So those role players and the other stars on the team need to step up in the beginning part of the game so that by the end of the game, when we need Joel at his best, he is there and ready to go. It really comes down to that. And I would love to see Matisse come out. I would have loved to have seen him start in place of Furkan potentially. And just, those guys need to take over the beginning part of the game.
Did the starting lineup come out yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
Yes. Furk's in the starting lineup.
Furk's in the starting lineup. Okay, that's I was going to toss that to you guys, but it doesn't matter now.
Yeah, I figured it is.
Dylan, if you want to go ahead, or Vance,
man,
go next.
So I think a glaringly obvious thing to state is don't take your foot off their necks when you have a lead. Doc, the team as a whole, like no four bench players and Toby out there with 8 minutes left in a 12-point game or whatever. But if I'm being honest with you guys, we talked about Ben and Tobias needing to step up, and it's true. But it's not them needing to do more. It's just them being themselves. It's that simple. Phil, you said it 5 times already this show. The Sixers are the better team. They're the more talented team. They've lost by 6 total points the last 2 games in these collapses, and we've seen what Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris have been in the last 2 games. If they're just themselves, the Sixers win tonight. Tobias Harris doesn't need to go drop 28 on great shooting. Ben Simmons doesn't need to score 20 points for them to beat the Hawks tonight. They just need to be better than they were in games 4 and games 5. And it wasn't themselves. It wasn't what we've seen all year long. If they're just themselves, and obviously if Joel Embiid's himself and not shooting 0 for 12 in the second half, that's a given, right? But if those two are just themselves and Joel is JoJo, the MVP runner-up, the Sixers, I don't feel great about it because I don't know if they're going to be themselves, but they win if those things happen, if they're just how they are all year.
Yeah, man. So for me, I'll go a little bit outside of the box and take it back to something that I said earlier. If you're Doc, you have the better team. There's no need for you to try to match Nate McMillan sub for sub. You dictate what you're going to do on the court, and you let Nate McMillan do whatever the hell he's going to do. You have the better team. Go out and dominate. And I'll take it back to something I said earlier. I really think it's important, especially with Danny Green not being on the court, that you play Tyrese Maxey. You absolutely have to. What do you have to lose at this point? I'll tell you something. Outside of Joel Embiid, he's the one player that I've seen on this team all year that hasn't shrunk at any point in the moment. So, and this kid is, he's a Kentucky kid. Those kids that played at every, top program or, every top level, AAU, college. This guy is not afraid. So if you're going to go down with somebody swinging. And that's why I'm putting Tyrese Maxey out there tonight. I'm giving him 20-plus minutes because this is win or go home.
I think the best play to just describe what you just talked about was the final play of Game 4 when Shake Milton had a walk into 3-pointer and passed the ball, was just looking for option B to just get rid of the ball with a second or a second and a half left to Seth Curry. You're right, dude. Go down swinging. If Shake's looking timid like that, if whoever's looking timid, your ass is next to me if I'm Doc Rivers, and we're going to go down fighting, or we're going to win this game and bring this bitch back to Philadelphia.
Yes.
Someone's got to show some fight. I'm wearing my Jimmy Butler jersey here because this is what this team is missing. Someone needs to step up. And the Jimmy Butler, the Kyle Lowry, which I was against that trade. Someone needs to step up and show some fight, some heart, some dog in them, because
Joe, you got a
that's
ticket.
what this team is missing.
Yeah, and I'll finish it off here. I'm with you guys. You guys covered it all. You covered Doc. You covered the rotation. You covered Toby. You covered Ben. Obviously, we know we need Joel Embiid out there at his dominant status. But I'm with you guys. It comes down to me, have some pride, have some dignity. At the end of the day, you had John Collins out there in that game while Ben Simmons is at the free throw line.
Talking shit.
Talking to our crowd, our fans, telling them to sit their asses down.
No. He was telling them, come on, mocking them.
And that's the other thing with our crowd. Why the hell do we cheer during free throws for our own team?
Yeah, it's very.
Don't you silence? Like, that is the dumbest thing that I've ever seen. For one, but
they're trying to pep up Ben, but
he needs silence. Like, this guy is in a mental juggernaut right now. Like, they've got to show some pride, and to see Tobias, like I said, playing hot potato at the end of the game. Take the shot, finish it with a dunk. Stop these layups. Dunk on them. Do something.
Well, if he dunks, he's just going to get blocked again.
After he plays hot potato. Gets blocked out of bounds blocked.
That's another play in the final few minutes of last game. He has the ball.
God, dude, have some pride, guys. Doc, have some pride. If these guys are playing lackadaisical at any moment in the game, you rip a hole in their ass on the court. I don't care about how they feel. You hold them accountable all night tonight. If they're not holding themselves accountable, we need something from the bench. That's something I wanted to point out here too.
13 points.
Maxey, right. You mentioned it. Maxey's had moments in the playoffs. Shake, Korkmaz. We need one of those guys. George Hill. Somebody has to hit some crucial shots.
How about a night where everyone's hitting? That would be nice.
Or everyone. It doesn't have to be one. The other thing I would say, obviously, Tobias, Ben, make their presence felt. Joel dominate for a full game. What I would say, when I say shorten the rotation or shorten the bench, I don't mean shorten the amount of guys you're putting in the game. I just mean shorten the amount of time that they're in the game. Mm-hmm. I just want to make that clear as well. And then, yes, don't lose focus. Doc, make adjustments. We need in-game adjustments, dude. That's been the clear deciding factor. In the second half, the Atlanta Hawks, they come out, they make adjustments. They slow us down. Doc, I don't know if he's making the wrong adjustments or he's just not making any. It's cost us the last 2 games. This series should be over, guys. Yeah. And that's how the Sixers should be looking at this. This should be over. We've embarrassed ourselves. Let's go out here, make up what we can actually make up here by winning this series in 7 games. Let's win tonight first. We need to take it one game at a time. But let's fix this because we shouldn't be in this situation. We are a better team. Do they know that? They have to know that, right?
They have to.
They have to know that.
They've dominated this series.
Yeah.
You look at it, they pretty much dominated the series.
They have. So real quick before we wrap up and give predictions here, because I think we're only 15 minutes away or so. I had to do a show with an Atlanta Hawks fan yesterday because I'm a man of my word. And I put it out on social media before Game 5 because I don't just crawl out of my hole after a win. And it was whatever. I was so defeated. I just didn't even feel like arguing back and forth over and over again. But just put you're better than this team. And I don't think that Hawks fans, they don't realize it and that he's calling me unrealistic. And I'm just okay, well, but to your point, Vance, they have dominated this series. And I was making a comment about the quarters, and obviously it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. I get that. So props to the Hawks for clawing, and they're up 3-2 in the series. Congratulations. I wish I was on that side right now. But the bottom line is if the Sixers don't fold in the fourth quarter of Game 5 and the fourth quarter of Game 4, they've won. How many quarters have been played so far? 20. The Sixers have won
20 quarters.
The Sixers have won like 16 of them. I'm being serious. The Hawks won the first half of game 1, the fourth quarter of game 4, and the fourth quarter of game 5. And that's not even an exaggeration. That's just how the series has played out. And here we are. One last thing that I wanted to throw to you guys. It's really weird. I don't know if you guys, I don't pay attention to other teams' box scores outside of the Sixers and plus minuses, but I don't know if I've ever seen a series like this where the Atlanta Hawks have a 3-2 series lead, and outside of game 4, where like their starters were like a +1, a +8, and even or whatever, the Hawks starters have all been negatives by a wide margin in every game, but they have a series lead. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. So what does that tell you? Does that tell you that the Sixers bench is just this bad? Is it? I don't know. I really don't know.
I think it says two things, Dylan. It speaks to the poor bench play, and it also speaks to coaching. That's the only thing that those are the only two things that I could come back to, because the Sixers have clearly been outplayed. The bench has clearly been outplayed by Atlanta.
Yep.
Clearly. And real quick, guys, Doc has to do exactly what Budenholzer did last night. He only played about 7 or 8 guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's pretty much what the Sixers have to do tonight to stave off elimination. Play your best 8, and everybody else just hold down the bench. Keep the water ready.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to kind of throw in there too before we get out of here, can Atlanta just show their age once in this series, right? Like, can they just collapse once in this series instead of, just staying they've been so mentally tough, honestly.
Yeah.
I know we talk about the Sixers collapse, and I do want to give some credit to the Hawks, because most teams, you're down by 26 points in the second half. They were down. I don't know if that was the case in the second half.
Dude, it was 24.
22.
It was 24 with 2 minutes left in the third quarter. That's how bad it was.
Most young teams would collapse right there and give up. They do have a good mix in there of veteran players like Gallinari, like Lou Williams, but they have not showed that mental weakness that you would expect from an inexperienced playoff team, honestly.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that, maybe down the stretch here, they can finally show some youth and inexperience, and maybe we can show that we have.
It's pretty sad. I had this conversation yesterday on the podcast with that fan about, he brought up the Hawks, mental toughness and how they have battled back, and they're the younger team. And it's kind of sad in a way that this was what the Sixers were doing 2 years ago, blowing big leads in playoff games or in games in the regular season and folding. And now, like, they should be doing that to the Hawks, and they're not. And then the other thing is just like what you're looking for tonight. Atlanta's going to be loud. They're going to be into it. Joel Embiid, that game when he struggled in game 4, we kind of, I don't know if people liked it or whatever. When he's telling the fans, he's listening to them and arguing with the ref, and then turns and says, shut the F up. Got a technical foul that night. He showed mental weakness in that game, and these young Hawks are getting to them. That cannot be the story tonight. It can't. Danilo Gallinari, if he pushes you in the back, he pushes you in the back. Maybe a foul gets called, maybe it doesn't. You can't turn around and mug him. You can't bend John Collins in half and risk getting tossed from the game. It has to be reversed.
They need to have tunnel vision tonight. Win. That's it. There's nothing else that matters. It doesn't matter how you win. It doesn't matter if it's by 1 point, by 20. It doesn't matter if you blow, if you blow a freaking 10-point lead in the third quarter. Whatever the case is, you have to win. You have to have tunnel vision tonight.
Listen,
you don't
basketball.
Have to talking to referees.
Everyone here knows this. Everyone here that talks basketball is a game of runs. You've heard it 1,000 times over the course of your life, right? The Sixers, obviously, when Atlanta starts to make that run, when the Sixers have had a lead, you've seen doubt creep in to their minds. You've seen the body language and the facial expressions of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris, and the frustration set in. And like Scotty said earlier, you see John Collins and Trae Young and the Hawks fans, and the Hawks players getting into it with the Sixers fans and mocking them. You guys have to be focused tonight. When doubt starts to creep in, answer the damn bell. Don't shy away from it and cower down and get off a shot with 1 second left in the shot clock, 4 straight possessions in a row.
Dylan, that's where your coach has to come in and stop the bleeding.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's why Doc Rivers is here. This is what we thought Brett Brown couldn't do. And this is what the reason why we brought Doc Rivers here. He's experienced. He's been through this time and time again. We brought him here to be able to get us over this hump. So that's what he needs to do. It's as simple as that.
And so I guess we can finish off here with just predictions for the game tonight.
Lead us off, Scott.
Who you guys have winning. I do just want to throw a little nugget in there. It was interesting to see the Kawhi-less Clippers go in and beat the Jazz.
PG, playoff P.
Right after we blow a 26-point lead there. All the talk that stemmed from, Doc Rivers' times in L.A. So I just wanted to throw that nugget in there. I got the Sixers tonight for probably the same reasons that if you guys are picking the Sixers, that's why I am. They have to. They're going home if they don't. They have to. And I don't want the season to end like this, and I know they don't want the season to end like this. And I'll end my segment here with this would be such a waste of this team to go out like this. We can feel however we want as far as our confidence levels for the next series if we were to ever get to that series. But take care of business now, because this is like the worst. It's not the worst possible situation of us losing, but it's up there. It's embarrassing, and it's gonna be such a waste of getting that number 1 seed that we talked about for months. We talked about it for months. It's going to be such a waste. And that's what I'm going to leave it with. I need a Sixers dub tonight. They're going to get it for me. And I'll leave it at that, guys.
That is the key thing. We worked our asses off all year to get that number 1 seed. We are going home because we're coming back to Wells Fargo Center for Game 7. You earn the right to have that Game 7, if necessary, in front of your crowd. Joel is not going down like this. They have to win tonight. They will win tonight. Then Game 7, you got to believe the Hawks have some pressure tonight. They don't want to go back to Philly. They don't want a Game 7 against a better team in Philly. So I think if they win tonight, that puts the advantage right back in the Sixers, lap right there. You've earned home court. You worked your ass off for it. Let's get the W tonight. Let's bring it home in front of our home crowd. You know what? We're at this point. We might as well deal with it. Let's take it in 7.
Yeah, fellas, legacies are on the line, right? We talked about this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
What do they say? A hurt dog is a dangerous dog or whatever. I like the Sixers tonight, honestly. I think they come out. I think they take care of business. And then for us fathers, they come back home and win on Father's Day in Game 7. But first things first, I think they take care of business tonight, and we're all feeling a little bit better about the situation.
All right. The unbiased, trying to be realistic person in me here says that the last 2 losses, the last 2 blown leads are just too much to overcome, because I've seen this team lose before and bounce back, but the way that they've lost these last 2 games just says that this is it. At a home crowd in Atlanta, they're folding, they're going home. The Negadelphian in me, the not wanting to, get my hopes up and get my heart ripped out tonight is what's coming out. But guys, this could be the last pregame show we do for this season. This could be the last time I get to talk about a Sixers game this season. I'm not going out like that. I ain't picking against the Sixers. It's Sixers in 7 because, like you said, Phil, if they get to come back home by winning tonight, the Hawks want no part of that. The young, the inexperience will show in a Game 7 in front of a sold-out Wells Fargo Center on Sunday night. Just take care of business tonight. Joel Embiid, I agree with you, is not going down like this. When you watch Joel Embiid cry down that hallway after the Kawhi shot 2 years ago, it changed something in him. It changed something in him for this moment. Legacy, like you said, Vance. Ben Simmons, could it be your last game in a Philadelphia 76ers uniform? Maybe he wants that. I don't know. But I'm going to say he doesn't. I'm going to say he wakes up tonight. There's no way in hell Tobias Harris has 4 points again. The Sixers are winning tonight, and I'm going to say they win by double digits. They covered a 3-point spread. They win by double digits, and they bring it home on Sunday night, and they take care of business on Father's Day. I don't know if any of you are fathers yet, but have a nice Father's Day present there. Sixers in 7, let's go.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you to everybody, including my guests here to join me. Thank you guys for joining the show. If you guys didn't already, be sure to follow Dylan at DylanJD98. Be sure to follow my man Phil down there in the left corner. Is it left or right? I'm sorry. I'm not going to get into that. Be sure to follow my man Phil at Beard of Knowledge. And, of course, be sure to follow my main man Vance at crew_.
Wait, Phil.
Hero.
Is that a Shane Falco jersey you have hanging up back there?
Of course it is. The Sixers need Falco. They need heart. Like he says in the movie, at the end of the movie. You need some heart tonight, okay? They need a little Falco in them.
Let's go, guys.
Let's go. Ring the
Sixers
bell.
in 7, but let's get the dub tonight first.
Yes,
That's
sir.
going to be it for this show, guys. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.